BDELL 101.
Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out, we're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy BDELL. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Now, the signification of the two moons is the blueprint of the resurrection of consciousness that collapses the demiurge, because the concordance of the two moons is a representation of divine intervention. Now, the second moon is the timekeeper of the collapse of the patriarchal patrilineal system of democracy. So this is basically the end game of the simulation, the playoffs, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we finna get straight to it, because we in that time period right now. Because everything that's going to be taking place in the Jason months in the fall is going to set the tone for the year of 2025, which is the 9-year, which is the year of completion. Now, there's a celestial phenomenon that's going to be taking place on September 29th of 2024, where you're going to see two moons in our atmosphere, right? Now, there's, many different, ideologies about this whole phenomenon that's taking place. Some say that it's going to be Nibiru. Some people say that it's the black sun. But like I said, we're finna go with this narrative in order to create a frame of reference and context in order to get people acclimated to the information that's taking place, metaphysically. Now, like I said, it is set to temporarily take place on September 29th. Now, when we get to, the context of it, it says this month, Earth will obtain a second moon in the form of a tiny asteroid called 2024 Part 5. The asteroid is known as a mini moon, expected to make a single orbit journey around Earth ending on November 25th. Not a coincidence for that synchronicity when you're talking about that specific date, because 2 plus 5 equals 7. 7 is also equated to evolution. So during this time, the asteroid will loop around Earth, but won't make a complete orbit. After the 2 months, it will return to the orbiting sun, right? Now, when you understand asteroids and things of that nature, and, celestial megastructures and things of that nature, they say that the second moon has a etheric energy to it, right? Which is basically the embodiment of the jade moon. And the jade moon is operating on fractions of light that creates this phenomenon called the northern lights, or the aurora borealis. We finna get into that as we get through the presentation. So this also in alignment with theological context when you go to Luke chapter 21, verses 25 through 28. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and the stars, and on earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. So like I said, this is, this phenomenon that's taking place. You got to understand something, from a metaphysical standpoint, right? You got to understand something from a metaphysical standpoint and scientifically, because in order to understand everything intuitively, you got to break down the science of circumology, meaning that you understand all perspectives intuitively to get one truth. You can't just be so subjected to theological context. You got to tap into the science and the metaphysics of it as well. Now, when you understand that, when you have two moons in our atmosphere, right? When you have two moons in our atmosphere, when you understand that the moon in our atmosphere right now is an artificial celestial megastructure, which is basically a quantum satellite that controls the energy, frequency, and the vibration of humans on the planet, which is energy and motion that creates the moves that's acclimated to the moon. which turns people into lunatics by way of the lunar frequency. So when you have two moons in our atmosphere and our physiology is made up of 70% water, it's going to activate certain nanoparticles and nanobots within our biological structure that we got from genetically modified foods that's going to activate those nanobots, right? So with that being said, two moons in our atmosphere is going to activate the shadow self. It's going to activate the self if you haven't done your shadow work. It's going to activate those demons. And for the people who took the draconian juice in 2020, it's going to amplify those nanoparticles all throughout your physiology. And it's basically going to put you in a state of emotionalism. Because as I was telling you before, the moon is basically the representation of energy and motion, right? And it operates by way of cymatic frequency. So it's going to have a certain gravitational pull, not only to the planet, but to your physiology. So during this time period, you're going to see a lot of implications, spiritual implications that's going to be taking place on the planet and for the people who are stuck on a low vibrational state in a state of degradation. Now we get back to the presentation. Now, when we get into the historical context of the two moons, the concordance of the two moon phases between themselves in the season is not a coincidence, but a result of divine intervention. Like I said, 1,000 years ago, a war between heaven and hell and other gods caused a collapse. So this is a war between the ruler gods and the creator gods. The ruler gods are your personification of the archonic forces. The creator gods are the positive faction of the Anunnaki, or what you call the Elohim, right? So when the war ended, the remaining gods briefly collaborated to put the war in order. One of the most titanic feats was to stabilize the orbits of the moons destined to fall on Earth otherwise, right? So this is basically the war in the heavens between Enki and Enlil, or when you're talking about the factions of the Anunnaki and the Gigi and things of that nature. All the mythology basically lines up with this, context that I'm telling you right here. So whether you're talking about the cherubim and the seraphim and things of that nature, everything lines up, you know, mythologically, esoterically, and things of that nature. The world between the collapse just had one white moon, which was the original moon called Shesky, when you go to Dr. York's publication in the Holy Tablets. But it was shattered during a fierce battle between the Seraphim, Elohim, Anunnaki, and the Demons, Archons, Draconians. The present moons were planets relocated near the world, the last two of the many that orbited around the sun before the collapse. So this is where you get into the inception of creation. When you're talking about the inception of how Earth basically manifested itself from the Ethereal cosmic mother by way of the nine noble gases, which is carbon, lithium, sulfur, helium, hydrogen, exon, radon, argon, and krypton. So during that process in the inception of creation, you also had a moon that was basically connected to planet Earth. So you had the gravitational frequency of Nibiru was pulling on the energy of planet Earth, and planet Earth broke in half. And that's what created uh, Shesky broke in half from planet Tiamat. And the moon, the original moon, ended up being the Earth zone of the Milky Way galaxy. So the moon that you see in our solar system right now is a quantum satellite that was told into our solar system by planet Jupiter, by Draconian reptilians, who controls the simulation by way of the energy extraction matrix of the moon. Because they have a supercomputer that controls everything on a binary code system. Now, when you understand that the second moon is basically the timekeeper of planet Earth, because like I said, we are basically entrapped in time. So when you're entrapped in time, that basically denotes the fact that the moons that you have in our atmosphere is called Kingu. That's part of the sleep spell. The sleep spell is the holographic projection of the electrical frequency that keeps you encapsulated inside of a fermented dome, which is a holographic simulation, a pixelated simulation. So this is where you get the inception point of where the patriarchy dematerialized the matriarch. And the reason I say that is because the female's menstrual cycle is approximately 29 and a half day cycle, which coincides with the four phases of the moon, making her symbol the square, while the male symbol is basically the embodiment of the circle, which is the sun. This is where you get square in a circle, where you get order out of chaos or creation, or you get destruction, right? Which is basically we're going through this time period when you're going to have the two moons in our solar system, while at the same time you're going to have the four gas giant planets, right? This is going to basically create a geometrical configuration around planet Earth. We're going to get into that as we get through the presentation. So, like I said, that's how you know that the moon pulls on the energy of the woman, because it's subjugating the divine feminine energy of nature to create a form of patriarchy, because patriarchy is the embodiment of the moon that created the material plane, right? So now we finna get into a video that I made, because two moons in our atmosphere, it can be metaphysically dangerous depending on if you haven't done your shadow work, right? And the reason I say that is because, this moon, like I said, our physiology is made up of 70% water. So what you think is going to do to the nanotechnology all throughout your physiology when you have two moons in our atmosphere pulling on your genetical structure, right? Because, like I said, the moon is basically the timekeeper. The second moon is the timekeeper of planet Earth. So when you have the gravitational frequency yanking at the planet at a violent level, it's going to cause calamity, it's going to cause destruction. And that destruction is going to amplify 6 times greater, because it's going to amplify the Schumann resonance spike on planet Earth to where you're going to get all these calamities. And these calamities, when you're going to have 6 times more hurricanes, tornadoes, everything intrinsically that's going to basically happen to the collapse of the demiurge of the simulation. This is a prophetic divination that's going to be taking place. So it's not a coincidence that you see cities like New York City, Singapore, in London. All these cities will be flooded. This is why I put out the video, Everything Will Change in 2025, which is basically the personification of the fall of Babylon. Because the gravitational frequency of two moons is going to be pulling on the energy that's going to activate the carbon on the planet. And when the planet is activated by way of the carbonated energy, because that is basically the hexahedron, that's going to activate the chakras of planet Earth, that is going to create El Nino weather. El Nino weather, where you get certain seismic activities and volcanic activity activated, because the planet is basically alive. It's going back into its original state, which is basically the personification of the reversing of polarity of patriarchy and going back into the matriarchy. Nature has to take back the planet by way of the Great Purification period. So when that Great Purification takes place, this is where you get the speed up of vibration. That means that the vibrational frequency of the planet's orbit is going to speed up in consciousness. So when you have the consciousness speeding up, the orbit of the planet slows down, right? So this is where you're going to have this celestial event. It could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen, where the moons could basically collide. That is going to be the embodiment of the fall of patriarchy, which is the fall of Babylon, which is the Great Purification period, where you're going to have this red energy around the planet, right? Which is basically red iron oxide dust. That's that Great Purification. And that's when you're going to get the inception point of the red star Kachina, right? All this stuff that you see taking place on a metaphysical level is a celestial event. So this can be your precursor to your so-called rapture, but the rapture is nothing but the return of the red sun that activates the planet, which is a Christ energy of the El Nino 9 weather. 9 is a representation of completion. 2025, 2 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9. 9 is completion. So whatever takes place as far as, from September, October, November, December, it's setting the tone and the frequency for the year 2025. So whatever's supposed to happen has to happen right now, right? So this is not something that's, it's a conspiracy. There are two moons in our atmosphere, and you're starting to see it. You're starting to see the transitional shift taking place with these two moons. I'm going to play the video. Now, I think this is in London, I believe. I'm not sure.
Lately, people have been recording two moons in the sky This was filmed somewhere over England. Look,
Okay.
that's two moons. That's not one moon. That's two. How is that possible? And it's not the only video. Here's another one. Two moons in the sky. What is going?
See, like I said, it's not a coincidence that all this stuff is taking place. We in that time period right now. We in end game. We in the end game playoffs of the simulation. So that basically means that it's time to get your shit together, right? Because we finna get into it, man. I got a lot of videos that's basically going to show you, everything that's taking place. So it tells you right here, the northern lights are expected to be more visible for 2 to 3 years around solar maximum. So now, solar maximum of solar cycle 25 is a metaphysical codex because 2 plus 5 equals 7. 7 is acclimated to the Christ energy that's acclimated to the crown chakra. So when the crown chakra of planet Earth is being activated by way of the Schumann resonance spike, these frequencies that's hitting the planet by way of gamma radiation under the Venturi effect, which is the velocity of ether that creates a form of ionization that manipulates the space-time continuum. So what happens is when you have the northern lights or the aurora borealis is nothing but green energy, green etherian energy. That's gamma radiation, right? When you look at the Hulk's physiology, he turned green. Gamma radiation is ether. That's ether at its apex of consciousness, right? So the Northern Lights forecast aurora may be visible in the United States for 2 years. Now, because I was telling you before, ether is the dodecahedron. It is the quintessential alchemical element, the fifth element that merges in with the four basic elements of earth, air, water, fire. And when ether collaborates with the four basic elements, it causes creation or destruction, which is acclimated to the four gas giant planets as we get through the presentation. So this coincides with the planetary geometry, the planetary geometry from 2024 to 2025 parallel timelines for the geopolitical, societal, and economic reset. So the collapse of the system with the green etheric energy all over the planet, the aurora borealis, that gamma radiation is going to cause the economic reset because in order to have a financial and economic infrastructure, you have to have, the electrical grid basically in stable condition. But these energies is going to destabilize the electrical grid system, right? So this is where you get an influx of the energies from the four gas giant planets, which is Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, right? Which coincides with the planetary geometry of the parallel timelines of geopolitical, societal, and economic reset. So the four gas giant planets of Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus is going to create a configuration around the planet, which is called squaring a circle, where you get order out of chaos, right? So right here, it shows you that around of October 19th of 2024, that's where it's going to be the inception point of the configuration process of the four gas giant planets around planet Earth, right? As you can see, you see Uranus, Jupiter, Neptune, Saturn. So that's going to be an influx of ether that's going to square the circle, order out of chaos. So during that time period, this is where you might get your October surprise. It's going to get very chaotic during this time period because at the same time where you have the four gas giants being activated, bringing an influx of gamma radiation to the planet, what happens is it's also going to activate that second moon. That second moon that basically works in synergy with the tides of planet Earth. It's going to activate it even more. So during this time period, this is not the time to be getting on boats and taking flights, right? And we finna get through that as we get through the presentation. Because I told y'all a long time ago to stay off them airplanes. So all these celestial events, all these celestial phenomena, also it tells you in the spring of 2025, our sun and all the heavy gravitational bodies in our solar system are behind the Earth, forming a gravity well pulling debris into our planet, which is basically showing you a triangular geometrical shape, which is a tetrahedron. Tetrahedron has a tetraangular radiation, and that radiation emits a gamma radiation of frequency of ether, right? And that happens around of 2025, April 15th, right? I'm giving y'all the dates to look for. Then on October of 2024, on October 24th, you're going to have the gas giants amalgamating with planet Earth. So this can basically manipulate, the election season, right? So one thing you got to understand metaphysically is that Jupiter is also known as the king planet. It's known as the king planet because Jupiter and Zeus together is where you get Jesus. Now, when you understand the metaphysical essence of the nomenclature title of Jesus, right? I told you in the ancient Proto-Semitic language, the J and the G are interchangeable, and the E and the A are interchangeable. So when you saying Jesus, you really saying Jesus. Jesus comes from the word gases, and that gas is ether. And the gas planet of Jupiter is an influx of ether. So when you're talking about, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, of the four gas giant planets, that's acclimated to the four basic elements of earth, air, water, fire that collaborates with ether. These Ethereum frequencies is basically not talking about the return of Jesus, it's the return of the Christ, right? Because ether, when it collaborates with the carbon body and when it collaborates with the carbon of the planet, it activates it because the planet Earth has a chakra system, just like how we have a chakra system, because we're a microcosm of the macrocosm, right? So if you're connected to the planet, that means you're going to get activated along with the planet when it's going through this transitional shift on the planet. When you have the four gas giant planets in configuration around the planet, which is a form of geomancy, right? So that's going to create the activation of the global electrical circuit, which is the global atmospheric circulation of planet Earth, which is basically the brain cells. It's going to activate it, which will basically create thunderstorms, right? Which will create a form of ionization. And that ionization, those ionization particles, is going to cause calamity on planet Earth. You're going to see, big hailstorms. You're going to see a lot of, many different things taking place. You know, there's a matter of fact, I got to find it. Where's it at? There's this saying, I'm going to load it up to the computer. Because all these anomalies taking place is, divine intervention, right? This is prophetic divination taking place. Right here, verbatim, it talks about how, when you have that influx of weather and these gamma radiations, all this stuff that's taking place on a metaphysical level, when you're talking about the weather, there's this saying that's been going around, right? It says the hurricane hit the slave states while the tornadoes follow the trail of tears, right? I'm going to say it again. All this is prophetic divination in the name of the end times of the eschatology. This is the eschatological timeline of prophetic divination. The hurricanes hit the slave states while the tornadoes follow the trail of tears. So everything that you're seeing right now that's going on with the celestial bodies of planet Earth, you got the two moons that's going to be taking place on September 29th. And then you also going to have the activation of the four gas giant planets, which creates a configuration around planet Earth. And that's going to create a manipulation in the ionosphere, right? And it's going to activate the chakras of planet Earth, right? And when the chakras of planet Earth is basically activated, this is where you get the creation of El Nino, Nin, Nin, which is basically a derivative of the word nine. Nine is completion. So during the 9 year, when the sun is at solar maximum of solar cycle 25 in the year of 2025, 2 plus 2 equals 4 plus 5 equals 9. So the 9 year is a representation of finality. So you got what is El Nino and what are the effects? And it tells you right here, El Nino is Spanish for Christ child, right? So one thing you got to understand metaphysically when you study ancient Hinduism, right? Krishna is the outer manifestation of Shiva. Shiva means seven, because Krishna comes from the word Christos, just like Christ. So the Christ energy is acclimated to the seven energy cortexes, which is your chakra system. So when those chakra systems is basically in alignment, that is the return of the Christ, not the return of Jesus. Because the return of Jesus is the return of the fifth element, gas. Gas is ether, the quintessential alchemical element of the four gas giant planets, right? Because I told you the word Jesus comes from the word jesses, gases, gamma radiation, ether. That ether is the Christ energy. That Christ energy is going to activate the chakras of planet Earth, and the chakras of planet Earth is going to be activated by way of the El Nino non-weather, right? Because the El Nino weather, meaning that the planet has to go through a purification process. So it's not a coincidence that you see stuff like this taking place over in Antarctica, right? The planet is being activated. Going through the shift, we are basically knee deep into the shift. So whatever's taking place right now, you know, is basically setting the tone and the frequency for the year 2025. 2025 is not going to be pretty for people who didn't do their shadow work, who for people who were stuck at a low vibrational state by way of indoctrination by listening to these people who control the factions of government. Y'all believe in these people. Y'all, you know what I'm saying? You discredit people like me and all the truth tellers or whatever, but you're going to believe in people on a TV screen that's giving you indoctrinated lies that keep you at a low vibrational state to, to basically control you. You got the waters from the east that's going to be collaborating with the waters from the west. That is going to be the activation process of the El Nino non-weather, right? And that's what's going to cause all those calamities, which is why I went back to this phrase right here. The hurricanes hit the slave states while the tornadoes follow the trail of tears. Because the energies of the two moons, is going to create the El Nino non-weather, and it's going to activate the chakras of planet Earth, which is going to create a form of ionization that's connected to the global electrical circuit, which is basically the brain cells of planet Earth. When you study the global atmospheric circulation, and these four gas giant planets is going to square the circle of around planet Earth, that's going to create an influx of ether while you have two moons in our atmosphere on September 29th for 2 months. So you got all these energies on the planet. What's taking place right now is not a coincidence. So that's why it's imperative for us to, galvanize our resources and come together, because this is where you're going to have, the unification of the cosmic convergence of the chosen ones, the 144,000. Calamity is what's going to bring us together, right? Because, it's not a coincidence that we got many different chosen ones placed in different parts of the planet Earth. It's hard for us to connect with other people. So with that being said, we're in certain spots of the planet because the ley line grid system of the cosmic energy grid system, which is the net of Indria, by way of geomancy, they have this configuration that's based on a time capsule of the planet that, that basically subjugates the planet to where, these energies is not able to come in. That's why certain chosen ones is, placed around certain parts of the planet, because I'm meant to be here. You meant to be somewhere else. Because when you speak truth to power, the octave vibrational frequency of the ether that's collaborating with the space-time continuum is going to reverse the polarity of the sleep spell. Just imagine if everybody was in one spot, you wouldn't activate the cosmic frequency like that. You have to have chosen ones placed in many different spots around the planet like Easter eggs, right? You can't put all of us in one basket. So you can't come together until the system collapse. We placed all around the planet for a reason. Excuse me. Chosen ones, we are placed all around the planet for a reason. It's not a coincidence, right? This is why you're the only one in your city who think the way you do, right? It's hard for you to get around like-minded people. You might be the only chosen one in your city. Because, like I said, when you speak truth to power, the octave vibration, collaborating with the four gas giant planets, collaborating with the frequency of the second moon. So this during this time period is when the veil is thin. This is a process of manifestation should be taking place also. So there's a dualistic energy that when it comes to these celestial bodies, is not only subjected to a form of an omen, right? And the reason I say that is because just how you have destruction, there's also an alignment of synchronicity for creation to create and manifest your own reality. Now, also when you get into the context of El Nino non-weather is a climate pattern that causes a warming of the ocean surface in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean, right? Not a coincidence. So this is why FEMA is coming out with many different publications talking about the giant FEMA map will help us first responders prepare for the big one. What is the big one? Right? I got a video for you. If you don't know what the big one is, get your popcorn, get whatever that you eating. I'm gonna play this video for a second. They trying to prepare you for the big one. Why is that? Because we in the end game of the simulation. We in the end game of the simulation. So they're preparing you for the big one. Uh-oh. Where is the video at? Hold on for a second. That ain't it. Yeah, here it goes. They're preparing you for the big one. Now, as I was saying before, it shows you right here, giant FEMA map will help first responders prepare for the big one. So it's not a coincidence that Donald Trump signed the National Emergency Declaration of FEMA, which basically gives them continuity of government, meaning that they basically control the military when the planet is in a state of emergency. And when a planet is in a state of emergency, that's when you activate martial law. So the giant FEMA map is preparing for the big one. The big one is basically the symbology of everything that I'm telling you that's going to be shown in this video.
Round of Los Angeles. Could it be that the big one is approaching? These
They
huge
putting it right in your face. The big one. The big one. And all this is acclimated to the solar eclipse that took place on April 8th. We finna get into that because one thing you got to understand about, when it comes to scholarship and information, everything works in synergy. You can't negate new information and old information. They basically coincide with each other because when you collaborate the new information with past information, that gives a lot more people clarity who is looking for the truth. So this is why everything that took place on April 8th is basically setting the tone and the frequency for what's going to be taking place with the four gas giant planets, with the two moons, as we going into the year of 2025, which is the year of the cosmic serpent, the Kundalini awakening of the planet and the Kundalini awakening of the chosen ones. It's not a coincidence that all this stuff is happening at the same time. It's not a coincidence that all these celebrities is being exposed. It's not a coincidence that all the politicians is being exposed. Everything is getting exposed right now because it's basically the fall of the patriarchal patrilineal system of democracy because it never was democracy. That was the fraudulent system in the old timeline. The new timeline is part of the shifting process because we're going through a transitional shift. We're shifting back into the restoration of the matriarch that is galvanized by the frequency of nature, right? Give the women, the divine feminine energy, they stuff back, right? This is a feminine planet. This is not a masculine planet. If that was the case, they would have called it Father Earth, right? It's Mother Nature, right? I'm gonna play this video. So they're preparing for the big one, just like I showed you in that publication by FEMA.
round of Los Angeles.
Could it be that the big one is approaching? These huge fissures are tearing through streets and homes in Rancho Palos Verde, an upscale county south of Los Angeles, California, causing alarm among residents. The situation is so severe that Governor Gavin Newsom has declared a state of emergency. The landslides, accelerating at up to 10 inches per week, are attributed to heavy rains and the area's weak rocks and clay. Authorities have cut off electricity, water, and gas to over 245 homes to prevent further disasters. Residents, fearful of losing their homes, are resisting evacuation despite warnings. This land movement dates back 70 years but has intensified over the past year. The growing fear is fueled by speculation that these movements could signal a major earthquake known as the Big One, linked to the San Andreas Fault.
I'm gonna show you again the big one. What is the big one? They're not even telling you this is a cryptic message. This is a codex preparing for the big one. Well, they could have just said the earthquake. That's how you know that they basically hiding information. They're trying to create this energy of mysticism to where you're not understanding everything, on an intuitive level, right? They don't want you to see beyond the veil. But the veil is lifted for those who are able to see the big one. They're basically talking about the seismic activity in that geographical area in California.
However, experts clarify that, for now, the cracks are confined to Rancho Palos Verde and have no confirmed connection to a potential megaquake. The situation is still developing, and the community remains on high alert. But this isn't the only place experiencing such issues. In Mexico, specifically in Ejido Coronel Cruz Galvez on the coast of Hermosillo, Sonora, a crack up to 4 meters deep has swallowed animals and left residents deeply concerned. The same is happening in northern Chilpancingo, Guerrero, where at least 350 families live in constant fear due to a geological fault that is destroying their homes. What's happening with the Earth? Could this be a sign of an incoming major earthquake? We can't predict it, but authorities and experts need to stay vigilant.
So, like I said, we're in that time period. This is the end game of the simulation. The collapse is basically upon us. This is the end game of the simulation. The collapse is on us. Bear with me. I'm a little sick still. I sound a little funny during the presentation. I'm a little sick. Got a little head cold. But we in that time period. So Giant FEMA map will prepare first responders for the big one. Right? Not a coincidence that you got videos like this coming out. Said everybody's being warned. He said evacuate. Right? So that coincides with the El Nino 9 weather. The El Nino 9 is also a nomenclature title for Christ. So the return of Christ is basically the activation of the four gas giant planets, which is a form of ether, right? So now this coincides with the April 8th solar eclipse that took place on April 8th, right? And that April 8th solar eclipse created a ancient Alf symbol or the ancient Tav symbol over the planet. So the ancient Alf symbol is also the personification of the ox symbol. And then when you also look at the Pisces fish symbol, it's also, like I said, this is basically reversing the polarity of patriarchy. So the April 8th solar eclipse, it went through 7 cities called Nineveh, right? It went through 9 cities not called Nineveh. So you had 9 total solar eclipses and 9, it went through 9 cities called Nineveh. And the 9th solar eclipse on April 8th, where you get the personification of 999, activation of 9 ether. So now, when you look at this from a theological standpoint, when you go to Jonah chapter 3, verse 4, it says Nineveh 9 equals completion in 2025, 9 year, Nineveh shall be overthrown. Nineveh is another title for America, right? So the solar eclipse went through 9 cities called Nineveh. Nineveh shall be overthrown. When you go to Jonah chapter 3, verse 4. Now, when you get into the esoteric codex of what Jonah means dove or pigeon. Because one thing you got to understand is that when you have the activation of the neuroendocrine transducer, when you have the activation of the chakra system of planet Earth, the dove is a representation of ascension, right? It's a representation of ascension, which is basically the trilateral connection of the triune brain, of the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus gland, and the pineal gland. And it basically forms a dove when you have the chakra system of your physiology in alignment with the chakra system of planet Earth. That is your personification of the return of the Christ. The return of the Christ is the return of the four gas giant planets that's hitting the planet, and is going to create a form of an awakening, and that's going to square the circle, which is order out of chaos. So the awakening is going to cause the order, but it's going to be a chaotic event on the planet because of the awakening of the chosen ones, the awakening of the planet, right? That's what's going to cause the collapse, right? So the solar eclipse, right? This is all metaphysical, because one thing you got to understand is all this is basically talking about the warnings of the cleansing of America, meaning that America has to go through a great purification period, because the solar eclipses over the geographical land masses of America was a representation of an omen, which was basically the return of the black sun, which is the supersonic battery of planet Earth, right? And it left the intrinsic energy on planet Earth, because the black sun, when it amalgamates with gamma radiations and the fractions of light under the Venturi effect, that velocity of ether has the ability to cause implications, spiritual implications, and spiritual calamity on the planet. Because I was telling you before, physical destruction is facilitated by spiritual energy that's transmuted by the cosmos. So that's why the great purification process is acclimated to the ninth hour. The ninth hour is the year of 2025. But whatever happens from October into 2025, that is setting the tone and the frequency for the reversing of polarity of patriarchy. Because one thing you got to understand is that America has reached its apex of the wickedness on the planet, basically meaning that it's reached a limitation standpoint. We at the apex of a seculum of a cycle. We at the apex of the fourth turning. Everything has to revert back. So that's why when you look at, you know, the April 8th solar eclipse is basically in alignment with the future map of the United States. And these energies from the four gas giants and the energy from the two moons is going to be the precursor to the future map of the United States of America, right? Because it's all based on the timelines of the geopolitical and societal economic reset. We are going through reset because the Northern Lights is nothing but an influx of ether. That's all it is. It's ether reverting the planet and back into its original balance, right? These energies from the two moons on September 29th, the two moons on September 29th, then you have the four gas giant planets creating a configuration around planet Earth in October. These are the energies that's going to set the tone and the frequency for the future map of the United States. But the inception point of that energy started with the alignments of the solar eclipses, the resurgence of the black sun, right? So that's why it's imperative, that's why FEMA is prepared for the big one. Look at California, it's all gone, right? Why is FEMA preparing for the big one in 2025? Because as I was telling you before, the year 2025 is the year of the cosmic serpent. A serpent is a representation of a Kundalini awakening. The Kundalini awakening on the planet and the Kundalini awakening in the 144,000 chosen ones, right? Not only does it show you the future map of the United States, it shows you the future map of the world, right? Now, let me get to some more videos. I know I got some more videos that's in alignment. Like I said, we in that time period.
Okay, I've never seen this before. It looks like a water main break in the middle of the street on La Cienega, your everyone's favorite WeHo CVS. And wow, that is wild. Okay, I've never.
Like I said, man, you got all these signs in front of you, but like I said, you can't, castigate information and say it's a conspiracy. You know, it's disingenuous, it's unintelligent. Because like I said, truth speakers, in the end, we are the ones that's basically going to prevail. So, like I said, that information is basically in alignment. The hurricanes hit the slave states while the tornadoes follow the Trail of Tears. The planet is going to get activated in the 9 year, right? Now, as we get through more of the presentation. So, when you understand when the planet is at the apex of consciousness by way of the activation of solar cycle 25, which is basically an intrinsic form of gamma radiation hitting the planet that spikes the Schumann resonance, this is where you have the sun at solar maximum. When the sun is at solar maximum, it creates implications within the economic infrastructure, the financial infrastructure, and the political infrastructure. So when you read this publication, it shows you that the United States Capitol Police Chief describes preparations for the possible post-election turmoil. Another publication, Alert, warns Dems to plan to turn guns on U.S. citizens once military recruits illegals, right? All this is based on the fact that the planet has to go through a chaotic state. That's what the moon is basically of. Energy of motion, emotions, mood swings. Because of lunar frequency, if you haven't done your shadow work, the lunar frequency will turn you into a lunatic, right? This is where you're going to get the chaotic energy when you have the two moons in our solar system. So Air Force General predicts a war with China in 2025, right? So all these energies that's hitting the planet, right? This is basically in alignment to all prophetic events that's in alignment with solar cycle 25, right? So this is also acclimated to the fact that, like I said, 2025 is the year of the cosmic serpent. This is why I tell people to stay off the airplanes. Now, when you read Delta passengers left with bursts of eardrums from noses, emergency landing. Now, it's not a coincidence, as I was telling you before, 2025 is the year of the cosmic serpent. Snakes on the plane. This is just my opinion. 2025 is going to be the year that you really need to, keep your ass off the airplanes. Because that's going to be the year of the Kundalini awakening of the planet. When a planet is awakened, that creates a form of ionization that manipulates the electrical grid system, right? That's what gamma radiation is, because the ether, as I was telling you before, the aurora borealis and the northern lights, this is not just a regular phenomenon that's taking place. That's not regular. It's going to be in our atmospheres for 2 years. That's going to be the energy that's going to collapse the planes, right? That's going to be the energy that's going to create the geopolitical and societal and economic reset, because the northern lights is a form of gamma radiation. So you have the visible light spectrum of the aurora borealis, the green ethereal energy all around the planet for 2 years, because it's all acclimated to the four gas giant planets. That gas is operating on fractions of light that's collaborating with the subatomic particles of the simulation. So that green ethereal energy is going to dematerialize and activate the global electrical circuit. which is the brain cells of planet Earth, and it activates the chakra system of planet Earth. This is where you're going to get your calamities, right? All this stuff is basically in alignment because we're in the ninth hour. The ninth hour is the great purification. The great purification is the restoration of the matriarch. So, like I said, this is the year to stay off the airplanes. 2025, the year of the serpent, snakes on a plane, right? Everything is esoterically connected, but it's up to you to not negate information and see it as a conspiracy or see it as a form of entertainment just because you like the movie, right? Everything has to be exposed. Now, the reason I say everything has to be exposed, the year of 2025, especially during this time period when you got two moons in our solar system, as I was telling you before, the second moon is the embodiment of the timekeeper of the collapse. So during this time period, you're going to get a lot of truth, not just truth from the music industry. You're going to get a lot of truth about historical context, what really happened. So I'm gonna play this video.
News this morning, another person from Texas died hiking the Grand Canyon over the weekend. The National Parks press release says a man from San Angelo died on a particularly hot day in the park.
The Grand Canyon is now closed by government authorities after a drone discovered something astonishing. Deep within its hidden caves, the drone captured footage of what appeared to be ancient Egyptian artifacts, giant mummies, and enormous bones.
Officials are investigating after a 33-year-old man fell to his death this week while touring the Grand Canyon, walking across
And
the
you also have cuneiform language, cuneiform hieroglyphics inside the Grand Canyon, right? Because, like I said, one thing you got to understand about the inception of creation, uh, that's where the black sun was projected at to basically heal the planet Earth to create this form of immortalized cell lines within planet Earth, because that's when you had the original moon broke off from planet Earth, and it basically created a crater, right? And that crater inside where the Grand Canyon is, that's where the black sun was projected at to basically mend the planet back into its original state, right? So that's, like I said, all this stuff is, the celestial bodies of planet Earth. It basically coincides with, with what's basically taking place from a political standpoint, historical standpoint. They got to give you the truth because the original energies is coming back. So since the original energies is coming back, that means you have to restore the original information.
People started wondering why 90% of the Grand Canyon is off limits to the public. What could be there so shocking that high-ranking officials want to keep them hidden from us all? Join us to reveal the truth about these strange findings the government is hiding. Hidden caves in Arizona's famous landmark. In the early 20th century, a bunch of explorers decided to check out a...
See, that's a whole different topic right there, because all those that you're seeing, all those mega structures and those rocks and those caves, it really ain't nothing but, ancient pyramids. Now, we can get through another video. They got to tell you the truth. See, like I said, everything is coming full circle. They're not just going to tell you they're not going to just tell you the truth about historical context and the history that they robbed of you. They got to tell you the truth about extraterrestrial existence. They got to tell you the truth of what's going on with these Diddy parties. They got to tell you the truth about everything, because, and it's going to happen in between of October and all the way up into the year of 2025. All the truth that's going to be revealed is going to blow your top back. So that's why I said the chosen ones, the conspiracy theorists, right? We are the real heroes because we've been telling y'all all along that all this stuff is taking place. This is where our tinfoil hat transmutes into a crown of knowledge. Everybody's going to be looking for you for the edification, for the resources, to basically, figure out what's going to happen next. They're going to be looking to you for that. So this happened in New Orleans, on September 10th of 2024. So one thing you got to understand about, spaceships or, motherships and things of that nature. What happens is that a lot of times they're able to cloak themselves by going into fourth octave ether. And the reason I said ether, because ether is a form of a gas. So it basically pulls on the electrical energy of electronic devices that's based on third density, and they use that energy as a cloaking device. So the cloaking technology extracts energy from electronic devices to how they form in a octave vibration, which is a form of a gas or a cloud. That's how they basically cloak themselves, right? So they got to tell you the truth. It's going to be too much revealed because the veil is thin. When the veil is thin, this is where you're going to get so much exposed. They got to come out with the full disclosure, not just about aliens, but they got to tell you about every goddamn thing that they've been hiding, right? And that's what this second moon is all about. It's basically exposing the shadow self within people who didn't do their shadow work, and it's basically exposing the shadow and the demons in the skeletons in the closet of of planet Earth, basically. Now I'm gonna play this video, and now this is what's taking place with Diddy is very spiritual, and it has everything to do with the two moons, and I'm going to explain it as we get through the video.
News at the top of this hour. New court documents show that Dwayne KPD Davis accused hip hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs of paying $1 million for the killing of rap icon Tupac Shakur. According to the court documents, Davis claimed.
I'm going to play it right back.
News at the top of this hour. New court documents show that Dwayne KPD Davis accused hip hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs of paying $1 million for the killing of rap icon Tupac Shakur. According to the court documents, Davis claims Combs paid Eric Von Martin the money. He also says that Combs offered to set up a phone call with Terrence Brown, who was the driver of the car that rolled up next to Shakur and Suge Knight on September 7th, 1996, near the Strip. Davis says that he was telling on himself and not trying to provide evidence against anyone else. He's accused of orchestrating the plot to kill Shakur. A trial date has been set now for some time in November.
Notice I said November because that's also during the time period of when the second moon is supposed to, get out of our atmosphere. Now, the reason I say that what's taking place with Diddy is metaphysically in alignment with the spiritual context of the planet. Because, like I said, the second moon is basically the timekeeper of the collapse of a system. It's the timekeeper of the collapse of a system, the collapse of patriarchy. So that means that all around the house of cards have to fall. So the awakening process, the apex of the awakening process, it all starts with the people who are basically oppressed by way of colonization. And the only way that the great majority of so-called indigenous people or black people, in order for us to wake up, we have to basically detach from this ideology of idolatry, right? Meaning that you have to stop worshiping celebrities. Worshiping celebrities is part of the degradation and the sleep spell that kept you acclimated to the illusion of third density. So that means that the tapes of P. Diddy have to be exposed. They have to be exposed is because black people have an emotional attachment to celebrities. So the celebrities that's on the tape, they got to be shown from politicians, it has to be shown. And because that's going to basically disconnect you from that belief that you had in that celebrity, it's going to pull you away from it and it's going to put you on a divine path. Because now you're going to detach from everything as far as the entertainment and the music. you're not going to deal with it no more because you understand what happened. You understand the truth now. You understand what's really going on behind the scenes when it comes to the music industry. That's why the tapes is going to be exposed, because that's going to be a part of the beginning points of the awakening all around the planet. Now, I ain't saying like we had many different timeline shifts and things of that nature, but the apex of the awakening and the apex of consciousness is going to be activated when these Diddy tapes is basically going to be exposed. When they show these tapes, that's when people are going to be like, man, like, all this is really a lie. I've been living a lie the whole time. I've been following around this celebrity the whole time. I've been, worshiping this celebrity the whole time, because, idolatry is a form of you not being able to connect with your higher self, because you're basically worshiping things outside of yourself, right? Which puts you at a low vibrational state, because these celebrities are here to, to propagate a certain agenda. And if you're following the agenda of the celebrity, that means that you don't have a form of independent thinking. When you don't have independent thinking, that means that you're basically an NPC, right? So the awakening process, like I said, is you're going to have a lot of people awaken when these Diddy tapes basically show up. And and a lot of people are going to see their favorite celebrities get exposed. It's going to be something like we ain't never seen in history. So that's why, during the time period of the two moons, then you got the amalgamation of the four gas giant planets collaborating with planet Earth. These energies is going to expose everything, right? It's going to expose everything. Everything, as far as the full disclosure about aliens and full disclosure about what happened with Tupac and celebrities and who put hits out on who's, evil. It's going to expose religion. It's going to expose everything, right? Because we in that time period. We at the end game of the simulation. So now I'm going to give a brief synopsis about what's taking place. So the two moons, as I was telling you before, is basically the embodiment of the fall of patriarchy and the fall of the patrilineal system of the Western world. That's what this basically symbolizes. And because the second moon is the timekeeper of the collapse of the demiurge. And at the same time, when you have these two moons, you're going to have an activation of gamma radiation, of an influx of gamma radiation, which is extracted from the northern lights, because the northern lights works in tandem with the energy of the black sun, which is the supersonic battery of planet Earth. So that creates a cymatic frequency, and that cymatic frequency activates the chakra system of planet Earth, which would create a form of calamity because it's working in synergy with the geopolitical, societal, and economic reset of planet Earth that coincides with the four gas giant planets of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, which is basically the personification of the four horsemen of the apocalypse that works in tandem with the four basic elements of earth, air, water, fire, and it amalgamates with the ether. And the ether is going to reverse the polarity that's going to create a form of ionization to where it squares the circle. And squaring the circle is where you get order out of chaos, and that chaotic energy is going to activate the global electrical circuit, which is the global atmospheric circulation, the brain cells of planet Earth. And the brain cells of planet Earth is going to create a form of ionization. That ionization is going to activate the chakra system of planet Earth. And when the chakra system of planet Earth is activated, it's going to create the El Nino 9 weather. Nin is another word for nine. Nine is completion. So the El Nino 9 weather is another title for Christ's child. When the planet Earth is activated by way of the chakra system, when you have your endocrine system in alignment, 7 is equated to Shiva. And Shiva is the outer manifestation of Krishna, Christos. So when the Christ or the Christos activated, right, that's where you're going to get calamity on the planet, which is why FEMA is preparing for the big one. When they prepare for the big one, they're basically talking about these earthquakes, right? And the inception point of that energy started with the April 8th solar eclipse. because 9 is equated to completion. So you had 9 solar eclipses, and 9 is equated to Nineveh, and Nineveh shall be overthrown when you go to Jonah chapter 3, verse 9. And Jonah, when you break down the etymology of it, it means dove, because a dove represents the ascension process when the chakra system of the planet is activated and when the chakra system of the chosen ones is activated. That's what's taking place, because we in the ninth hour. We in the ninth hour. We at the apex of the system of consciousness is getting activated. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you know, we in endgame. We at the apex of the system. We at the apex of the second month of the cycle. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, you know, as I was telling you before in the beginning of the video, when you have 2 moons in our solar system, it's going to activate the vibrational frequency of the gravitational pull on your physiology, because our physiology is made up of 70% water. So when your genetical structure is made up of 70% water, it's going to basically extract more energy, because the moon pulls on the tides of the planet, and it's going to be pulling on the carbonated structure of your physiology, meaning that it's going to activate the nanobots and the nanoparticles that you got from genetically modified foods. So during this time period, from September 29th all the way up into November 25th, you should be fasting and detoxing a lot more to get these nanobots and those nanometals out of your physiology, because it's going to pull on your physiology when you have these 2 moons in our solar system, right? It's going to activate your shadow self if you haven't done your shadow work. You should be healing during this time period, and you should be manifesting during this time period. This time period that we're living in is prophetic divination by way of divine intervention. So it's imperative that, you know, we got to get our shit together, right? Because the chakra system of planet Earth is going to get activated. Because 2025 is the year of the cosmic serpent. So whatever is got to take place in 2025, it's got to happen in between now and December. So get ready. Like I said, we in that time period. This video is not, you know, it's not fear mongering, you know, because like I said, there's a delineation between fear mongering and truth telling and having synchronicities and downloads. Stop trying to castigate the truth just because you're scared. If you're scared, take your ass to church. We're in the time period right now. We should be giving everybody the edification that they need in order to, you know, to put together their resources to where they're able to, you know, be in a state of survival, to have some type of self-preservation on the planet when the planet is going through a purification process. Because the wickedness on planet Earth and in America has reached its limitations. Babylon must fall. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen,
10:14. We will put an end to this madness.
It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you, and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire, cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes 2. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.
This a completion, the selfish proto-Grecian, Amerindian Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. Niggas try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery. Honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History, it's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.